Hey everyone, I'm Bay Forrest with Focus Ministries, and I want to thank you for giving me a chance to share this third message with you from the three-part series I've been doing on encouragement. And if you were with me for the first two times, you'd know that first of all we talked about spurring one another on towards love and good deeds from Hebrews chapter 10, and then we looked at Ephesians 4:29 that talks about the good words that we should share. Let no unwholesome word, but just the good words come out of our mouth that will build others up. And then in the second session that we had together, I talked about spears and the danger of letting those unwholesome words hit us, or those unwholesome words that we might turn around and throw back at somebody else as a spear, and the damage that that can do. And that we are to only use words that build others up according to the need of the moment, that it may give grace to those who hear. But you know, sometimes words may not be enough. And that's what I want us to talk about today, because sometimes we need to put it into practice somehow. Even the Bible tells us that if we see somebody that's hungry or that needs clothing, we can't just say, well, blessings on you, hope you're warm, and I hope you have enough to eat. Sometimes we got to take care of those needs. And Jesus talked about that as well. But to use an illustration on that, I want you to see something that my wife and I collected as well. This is a Pokot pillow, and it's from the Pokot tribe of Kenya, East Africa. The men carry these with them, and they use them as a stool that they sit on the ground. Keeps them from getting in the dirt. You'll see them carrying them everywhere they go. At night, it's polished and smooth, and they put it under their neck, and they lay their neck down on it like that. It seems like it would give a terrible crick in your neck, but it kept their head off of the ground. And I want us to think about, how can we be this kind of a support, this kind of protection for others that will help them through the tough times. And in talking about that, I want us to look at a question that Jesus was asked. He was asked by one of the religious scholars of the time. He was asked, hey teacher, who is my neighbor? And he was hoping that he'd be able to get away with not having to do as much for other people. And Jesus said, well, let me tell you a story as to who your neighbor is. And he told the story of the Good Samaritan. And he told about a man who was traveling between Jericho and Jerusalem, very dangerous place for them to travel. And as he was going along by himself, thieves came along, grabbed him, stripped him of everything he had, took everything, and beat him almost to death and left him at the side of the road. And Jesus said the first person that came by was a religious priest. And he came by and he looked and he saw the man over at the side of the road. He said, I don't have time for that. I'm a busy man. I have important things to do. And he just kept on going. And Jesus said the second man that came was also somebody from the temple that worked in the temple area, an assistant. And he looked and said, no, I'm not messing with that. That would be costly. It'd be time consuming, and I'm not going to mess with it. But then Jesus says the third person that came by was a Samaritan. Now you have to understand that a Samaritan would never spend time with a Jew in the area, and the man that had been beaten and left on the side of the road, he was a Jewish man. And so here's a Samaritan and a Jew that are together. They hated each other, and they would not spend time together. But this Samaritan cared about this man. He was a neighbor with proximity. They lived right next to each other on borders, but he cared enough that he took the man, pulled him off the side of the road, dressed his wounds, put him onto his donkey, took him to the inn, and there he gave the innkeeper 2 silver coins and said, take care of this man, and if this isn't enough, the next time I'm through, take care of him for as long as you need to, and I will pay the rest. Now that was pretty impressive that he would do so. And Jesus turns to the scholar that asked him, who's my neighbor? And he says, so who was the real neighbor there? And the scholar had to admit it was the Samaritan. And I think that's a great illustration for us, because Jesus breaks it down into 3 points that are needed to be a good neighbor. For each of us to be a good neighbor, it's the same thing. First of all, we have to have eyes to see the need. The same way that Samaritan, he could have been looking for thieves everywhere and just worrying about his own problems. He looked and he saw there was a need. We have to see needs around us. If we have neighbors that have problems, we need to be looking for ways that we can help them. So we have to have eyes to see the need. Secondly, Jesus says we have to have a heart of compassion. That man could have said, whoa, he has a need, and then just moved on and said, hope you do better. I'll be praying for you. But instead he said, no, I have a heart of compassion. I want to help you. I want to make sure that you're okay. And he took of his own time and actually not only used his own resources with a first aid kit that he must have had with him, but he also put him on his own donkey, and then took him to an inn and used his own money to provide for the man to make sure that he would make it back and get healthy again. And That's where Jesus said the third thing that's necessary is we have to have a generous response. And isn't that true for each of us too? Now listen, we should take care of our own family. We should not leave them where they don't have anything. They're our first responsibility. But as well, if God's blessed us and we have extra, then we need to make sure that we're willing to share that with those around us, whether it's somebody across the world or whether it's somebody next door. We have to meet needs where they're at. Can we be that Good Samaritan that's looking for chances to be the hands and the feet of Jesus? And I would leave you with one other challenge that Jesus made. He said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Let's start doing.